So this happened 3 weeks ago, and I'm still processing what the hell just went down. I moved out for college 2 years ago when I turned 18. Been working part-time and doing decent in my computer science program. My parents, Andrew and Margaret, always acted like I was some burden they couldn't wait to get rid of. But I figured once I was independent, things might get better between us. Boy, was I wrong. Let me give you some background because this goes way deeper than just selling my stuff. My cousin Charlotte is 26, never held a job longer than 3 months, and has been pregnant twice in the last 4 years with different guys who both bailed. My parents absolutely worship her because she's family-oriented and needs support during this difficult time. Meanwhile, I've been busting my ass in school and working at a tech repair shop to pay my own way, but somehow I'm the disappointment. The thing is, I've been expecting something like this for years. My parents always made it clear that Charlotte was their favorite, even though she's technically my dad's brother's kid. When I was 16, they gave her my birthday money because she needed it more for baby supplies. When I graduated high school, they skipped my ceremony to help her move apartments. I learned early that, in their minds, Charlotte comes first, and I'm just the ungrateful kid who doesn't appreciate family. So 3 weeks ago, I'm finishing a run around campus when my phone starts blowing up. Dad texts me first, and I swear to you, reading this made me want to throw my phone into traffic. He says we sold your bed, desk, and everything in your room for $800 because Charlotte needs it for her baby. Want to come home for Christmas? Buy us a new living room set. $2,500 cash, otherwise stay away because we already changed the locks and gave your key to her. But wait, it gets so much better. Mom jumps in immediately after with her own special message. She tells me, by the way, we told everyone you abandoned us for your rich girlfriend. Which is hilarious because I'm single and broke as hell, sees? And the whole church thinks you're ungrateful trash. Pay up, or we'll tell them you hit me last Thanksgiving. Which never happened, by the way. I've never laid a hand on either of them. Then Dad sends another one that made my blood boil. Your cousin's moving into your room permanently because she deserves family support unlike you. Remember when you begged us not to sell Grandpa's watch he left you? We sold that too. $400 for her crib. That watch was the only thing I had left of my grandfather. He died when I was 14 and specifically left it to me in his will because we used to work on old clocks together in his garage. It was a 1960s Omega that he wore every day for 40 years. They knew how much it meant to me. I literally cried when I found his will and saw he remembered our time together. But Mom wasn't done yet. She adds that the neighbors already think I'm on drugs and asks if I want them to confirm it. At this point, I'm standing in the middle of campus looking at these messages thinking, what kind of parents threaten to spread lies about their own kid being a drug addict just to extort money? Here's what really gets me, though. They thought I was just some broke college kid who would either pay up or disappear quietly. They had no idea I've been planning for something exactly like this since I moved out. See, I learned something important from my grandfather before he died. He told me that sometimes family will try to take advantage of you, and you need to be ready to protect yourself. So I've been preparing. I kept every cruel text, every time they chose Charlotte over me, every broken promise. I documented how they used my college fund for Charlotte's first baby expenses. I saved the messages where they called me selfish for wanting to keep my own birthday money. Most importantly, I've been staying in touch with my grandfather on Dad's side. You know, the one whose watch they just sold. My grandfather Connor is 83, owns 3 rental properties, and still sharp as a tack. He never liked how my parents treated me, but he's old school and tries to stay out of family drama. However, he's also the one who co-signed the lease on my parents' house 5 years ago when Dad lost his job and they almost got evicted. He's been letting them live there below market rate ever since. The second I read those messages, I knew exactly what I was going to do. This wasn't some impulsive decision. I've been waiting for them to cross this line for years. I drove straight to Grandpa Connor's house and showed him everything. Every single message, every threat, every lie they were planning to spread about me. You should have seen his face when he read about them selling his watch. That watch was his father's, passed down through 3 generations, and they sold it for crib money without even asking. When he got to the part about them telling the church I abandoned them, he actually stood up from his chair. This is a man who never raises his voice, never gets dramatic, but he was shaking with anger. Grandpa spent about an hour going through all the messages I'd saved over the years. The birthday money theft, the missed graduation, the constant favoritism toward Charlotte. He kept muttering things under his breath that I won't repeat here. Finally, he looks at me and says he's seen enough. That evening around 6 p.m., Dad starts calling me over and over. When I finally answer, he's absolutely screaming. What did you tell him? He's giving us 30 days to get out. He's demanding to know what lies I spread, what I said to turn Grandpa against them, how I manipulated an old man into kicking out his own family. Here's the thing, though. I didn't manipulate anyone. I just showed Grandpa the truth. Their own words, their own choices, their own threats. Turns out when you threaten to lie about your kid being a drug addict unless they give you $2,500, and you sell a family heirloom without permission, even family gets tired of your garbage. Mom gets on the phone crying about how I'm destroying the family, how Charlotte needs stability for her baby, how they can't afford to move. She's begging me to call Grandpa and tell him it was all a misunderstanding. Dad jumps back in, saying, I better fix this or I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But here's what they still don't understand. This isn't about the money or even the stuff they sold. This is about 20 years of being treated like I don't matter while Charlotte gets handed everything. This is about them thinking they could threaten and extort me because I'm just their disappointing son who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they throw my way. I told Dad very calmly that I didn't lie about anything. Every message Grandpa saw came directly from their phones. If they don't like the consequences of their choices, maybe they should have thought about that before trying to blackmail their own kid. The best part? Charlotte has no idea what's happening yet. She thinks she's got my room, my parents' support, and everything figured out. She has no clue that Mom and Dad are about to lose the house and have 30 days to figure out where they're all going to live. This is just the beginning, though. I've got 2 more years of college left and I'm already planning my next moves. They wanted to play hardball with family loyalty? Let's see how loyal everyone stays when the truth comes out. Update 1. Holy crap, you guys, the comments on my last post were insane. Shout out to everyone who said my parents had this coming. You were absolutely right. And to the person who said I should have seen this coming years ago, trust me, I did see it coming. That's exactly why I was ready. So it's been 2 weeks since Grandpa Connor gave them their eviction notice, and my parents have completely lost their minds. I'm talking multiple calls every single day, showing up at my work, even driving to my campus. They're not taking no for an answer, and they definitely aren't accepting responsibility for anything they did. The first few days after the eviction notice, Dad kept calling me, trying a different approach each time. First, he tried the guilt trip about how I'm destroying the family and leaving Charlotte homeless with a baby. When that didn't work, he switched to anger, screaming about how ungrateful I am after everything they sacrificed for me. What sacrifices? They spent my college fund on Charlotte's first kid and made me work part-time to pay for school myself. But here's where it gets really interesting. When Dad realized I wasn't budging, he finally told me the real reason they've always treated me like garbage compared to Charlotte. Turns out, when I was born, they were hoping for a girl and had already picked out names and bought pink stuff. When I came out a boy, Dad said Mom went into this weird depression for months and refused to bond with me. Then when Charlotte was born 8 years later, Mom basically decided she was the daughter she never had. Even though Charlotte isn't even her biological kid, Mom started treating her like her own child, and I became the disappointment who ruined her perfect family vision. Dad went along with it because he said it was easier than fighting with Mom about her attachment issues. This explains so much about my childhood. Why Charlotte always got the bigger room, the better presents, the family trips I wasn't invited on, why they paid for her first apartment but made me work at 16 to buy my own clothes, why every conversation with them somehow ended up being about what Charlotte needed or what Charlotte was going through. Dad actually had the nerve to tell me that I should understand why they prioritize Charlotte because she's had such a hard life with 2 failed relationships and no career direction. Meanwhile, I've been busting my ass in school, working part-time, and never asked them for anything beyond basic parental support. But apparently being responsible and independent makes me less deserving of love and respect. The really messed up part? Dad said he thought selling my stuff and demanding the money would teach me a lesson about family loyalty. He genuinely believed I would either pay up and learn my place in the family hierarchy, or disappear quietly and stop being a problem for them. The idea that I might actually fight back never crossed his mind. After that conversation, I realized they truly don't see me as their son. I'm just this obligation they've been stuck with for 20 years, and Charlotte is their real child. That actually made my next moves way easier because I stopped feeling guilty about what I'm putting them through. Speaking of Charlotte, she found out about the eviction 5 days ago, and oh boy, did she handle it exactly like I expected. See, my parents hadn't told her anything about the threatening messages or the demands for money. They just said there was a misunderstanding with Grandpa Connor, and they needed to find a new place temporarily. Charlotte showed up at my work during my shift at the tech repair shop, waddling and 8 months pregnant and demanding to know why I'm being so vindictive toward people who just want their family back together. She kept saying, I need to call Grandpa and fix this situation because she can't handle the stress of moving while pregnant. I let her talk for about 10 minutes, then pulled out my phone and showed her the actual messages Mom and Dad sent me. The threats about lying to the church, the demand for $2,500, the part about selling Grandpa's watch for her crib money. Her face went through about 5 different expressions as she read through everything. Charlotte tried to defend them at first, saying they were just emotional and didn't mean the threat seriously. I asked her if she would threaten to lie about someone being a drug addict to extort money from them, even if she was upset. She got quiet and couldn't answer that. Then she switched tactics and started crying about how this is all affecting her pregnancy and her stress levels. She said, I'm being selfish by punishing her for something my parents did, and that I should think about my unborn nephew before I continue this revenge plot. That's when I reminded Charlotte that she was the one who moved into my room, knowing my parents sold all my stuff without permission. She was the one who accepted furniture bought with money they demanded from me through blackmail. She was perfectly fine benefiting from their treatment of me until it started causing problems for her. Charlotte got defensive and said she didn't know the full story, but I pointed out that she never bothered to ask either. She just assumed I deserved whatever was happening because that's how our family has always worked. My problems don't matter. But the second something affects Charlotte, everyone needs to drop everything and fix it. The conversation went on for almost an hour because my manager thankfully understood what was happening and let me handle it. Charlotte kept trying different angles to convince me to call Grandpa, but I made it clear that ship has sailed. She finally left when I told her that maybe this is a good opportunity for her to learn what it's like to deal with problems without my parents fixing everything for her. But here's the thing that really shows how calculated my parents are about this whole situation. After Charlotte's visit didn't work, they sent my Aunt Nova to try to convince me. Nova is Mom's sister and has always been the family mediator. She called me 3 days ago saying she understands I'm hurt, but I need to think about the bigger picture. Nova tried to explain that Mom has struggled with mental health issues since I was born, and that's why she connects better with Charlotte. She said I should be the bigger person and help them find a solution, because family is supposed to forgive each other. When I asked Nova if she knew about the threatening messages, she said she'd heard there was some kind of argument, but Mom only told her I was being unreasonable about money. So I sent Nova screenshots of everything just like I did with Grandpa. The blackmail threats, the lies they were planning to spread, the selling of the watch, all of it. Nova went silent for a long time, then said she had no idea things had gotten that bad. She apologized for trying to pressure me without knowing the full story. The best part about all this? Nova told me that she actually lent my parents $3,000 last month because they said they needed to help Charlotte with baby expenses. Now she's realizing that money probably went toward their own bills while they were planning to extort $2,500 from me for furniture. Nova is not happy about being lied to and used, but my parents still aren't giving up. Yesterday, Mom showed up at my campus crying and begging me to at least call Grandpa and ask for more time to find a place. She said they've been looking at apartments, but everything is too expensive and they need their deposit money back from Grandpa to afford first month's rent somewhere else. I told Mom that maybe they should have thought about housing costs before they decided to threaten their son with false accusations to steal money from him. She started crying harder and saying she never meant for things to go this far. She was just scared about Charlotte being homeless and desperate for a solution. That's when I realized something important. Mom wasn't really apologizing for what they did. She was sorry it didn't work. She was sorry I had the resources and connections to fight back instead of just taking their abuse like they expected. If Grandpa hadn't been in the picture, or if I hadn't kept evidence of their behavior, they would have gotten away with all of it. The deadline for them to move out is in 2 weeks. Charlotte is supposed to give birth in 3 weeks. And I've got one more major play ready that's going to completely change their situation. They think losing the house is the worst thing that can happen to them. But they have no idea what I've been planning while they've been running around trying to fix this mess. Time to show them what real consequences look like when you spend 20 years treating your kid like he doesn't matter. Update 2. You guys, I can't even believe what happened yesterday. The level of manipulation and desperation my parents reached is absolutely mind-blowing. But here's the thing. I was ready for it. So remember how I said I had one more major play planned? Well, it turns out I didn't even need to execute it because my parents literally handed me the perfect opportunity on a silver platter. It's now exactly 1 week before their eviction deadline, and Charlotte went into early labor yesterday morning. Instead of going straight to the hospital like normal people, my parents decided this was their golden chance to emotionally manipulate me into fixing everything for them. Dad shows up at my campus around noon while I'm between classes, and he's got Mom and Charlotte with him. Charlotte is having contractions in the backseat of their car, clearly in pain. And Dad tells me I need to come to the hospital right now because this is my nephew being born, and family should be together during important moments. I looked at this whole scene and immediately knew what they were doing. They thought bringing Charlotte in labor would make me so guilty and emotional that I'd break down and call Grandpa Connor to get them more time. Maybe even offer to help them financially. Classic manipulation tactic. Use a major life event to pressure someone into forgetting about all the horrible things you did to them. But here's what they didn't count on. I've been planning for exactly this kind of emotional manipulation for months. While they were running around trying to find apartments and begging relatives for money, I was preparing for their final desperate move. See, I never told you guys about the family group chat. It's this WhatsApp group that includes pretty much everyone in our extended family. Aunts, uncles, older cousins, even some family friends who've been around forever. Mom started it a few years ago to share updates and photos, and it's got like 30 people in it. The beautiful thing about this group chat is that my parents have been using it to control the narrative about our situation. They've been telling everyone that I'm going through some kind of rebellious phase and refusing to help them during a difficult time. They painted themselves as the victims of an ungrateful son who abandoned his family when they needed him most. So when Dad told me I needed to come to the hospital for Charlotte's labor, I said absolutely, I'll be there. But first, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly why we're in this situation. Right there in the campus parking lot, with Charlotte having contractions in the back seat, I opened up that family group chat and posted screenshots of everything. Every threatening message, every demand for money, every lie they planned to tell about me. The texts about selling Grandpa's watch, the threats to tell the church I hit Mom, the demand for $2,500 to buy their love back. I typed one message above all the screenshots. Since everyone keeps asking why I won't help my parents during this difficult time, here's the complete story of what they actually said to me and what they demanded. I've been keeping this private to protect them, but since they're using Charlotte's labor to manipulate me publicly, I think everyone deserves to know the truth. The reaction was immediate. Within 5 minutes, my phone was blowing up with responses from family members who had no idea what my parents had really done. Aunt Nova confirmed in the chat that she'd seen these messages and could verify they were real. Uncle Caesar, who's always been the family's voice of reason, posted that this level of emotional blackmail was completely unacceptable. But the best response came from my great-aunt Emma, who's 87 and usually stays out of family drama. She posted, "Andrew and Margaret, I am disgusted. Threatening to lie about your own child being a drug addict to steal money from him? You should be ashamed of yourselves. This boy has every right to protect himself from your abuse." Dad watched me typing and posting and started demanding to know what I was doing. When I showed him the group chat, he went absolutely ballistic. He started screaming about how I'm destroying their reputation and making Charlotte's labor about my petty grudges instead of focusing on the baby. That's when I realized something that made everything click into place. Dad wasn't angry because I was lying or exaggerating. He was angry because I was telling the truth. He knew that once people saw their actual words and threats, no one would be able to defend their behavior or pressure me to forgive them. Mom started crying and begging me to delete the messages, saying this isn't the time or place for family drama with Charlotte in labor. I told her very calmly that she was absolutely right. Threatening your son with false accusations while demanding money definitely wasn't the time or place for drama, but that didn't stop her from doing it. The whole conversation lasted maybe 15 minutes, but by the end, the family group chat had completely turned. People were sharing their own stories about times my parents had manipulated or used them. Uncle Saul mentioned how they'd borrowed money from him 6 months ago for emergency car repairs, but he'd seen them take a weekend trip the following week. Cousin Emma posted about how my parents had guilt-tripped her into babysitting Charlotte's first kid for free every weekend for 3 months, claiming they couldn't afford childcare, but then bought Charlotte a brand new iPhone as a push present. The most devastating response came from Grandpa Connor himself. He rarely uses technology, but someone must have shown him the group chat because he posted a long message explaining exactly why he gave them the eviction notice. He detailed how they'd been taking advantage of his below-market rent for years while treating me like garbage, and how selling his father's watch without permission was the final straw. Grandpa finished his message by saying that any family member who wanted to help Andrew and Margaret with housing or money was free to do so, but he would not be guilted into enabling their abuse of his grandson any longer. By this point, Charlotte was in serious labor and needed to get to the hospital immediately. But instead of rushing there like reasonable people, my parents spent another 10 minutes in the parking lot arguing with me about the group chat and demanding I delete everything. Dad kept saying I'd just ruined any chance of reconciliation and that once Charlotte has the baby and everyone calms down, they'll all realize I'm the real problem in this family. Mom was crying about how embarrassed she is and how she'll never be able to show her face at family gatherings again. I told them they had exactly the reaction they deserved. If they were embarrassed by their own words being shared with family, maybe they should have thought about that before threatening and blackmailing their son. If they wanted to be seen as good parents, Maybe they should have tried actually being good parents instead of manipulating everyone around them. The crazy part is that even while Charlotte was in active labor, they were more concerned about their reputation and controlling the narrative than actually getting her medical care. It took me literally telling them that Charlotte needed a hospital immediately before they finally drove away. I didn't go to the hospital. After 20 years of being treated like I don't matter, I wasn't about to pretend everything was fine just because there was a baby being born. Charlotte has plenty of family support, and my presence there would have just created more drama when everyone should be focused on her and the baby. But here's what really shows how this whole situation has played out. Since yesterday, I've gotten messages from 7 different family members offering to help me with school expenses, internship connections, or just general support. People who I thought had believed my parents' victim narrative actually knew something was wrong, and were just waiting for the truth to come out. Meanwhile, the family group chat has gone completely silent about helping my parents with housing or money. Funny how quickly that family comes first energy disappears when people realize exactly what kind of family behavior they'd be enabling. Charlotte had the baby this morning, a healthy boy named Connor, after great-grandpa. The irony of naming him after the grandfather who evicted them isn't lost on me. I'm sure in a few years they'll be telling Connor all about how his mean uncle abandoned the family during the most important moment of his life. But here's the thing, I've got screenshots of this whole situation saved forever. When Connor gets old enough to ask questions about why Uncle doesn't come to family events, he'll be able to see exactly what his grandparents and mom chose to prioritize when he was being born. 4 days left on their eviction deadline. The family group chat hasn't seen a single offer to help them move or find housing, and I've never felt more confident that I made the right choice in exposing their behavior. Sometimes the best revenge is just making sure everyone knows who people really are when they think no one is watching. Final update. Holy crap, guys, this is it. This whole nightmare is finally over and I can't believe how it all ended. Thank you to everyone who's been following this insanity and supporting me through the comments. You've all been absolutely right about everything. So yesterday was their official eviction date, and true to form, my parents saved their most desperate manipulation attempt for the very last moment. But this time I was ready with something I'd been planning since this whole thing started. Around noon yesterday, I get a call from Dad and he's using this completely different tone than I've heard from him in weeks. Suddenly, he's apologetic and reflective, telling me he's been thinking about our relationship and realizes they made mistakes. He says they want to sit down as a family and have an honest conversation about how to move forward. I knew immediately this was garbage, but I was curious to see how far they take this new approach. Dad tells me they're staying at some motel near the highway with Charlotte and the baby, and they want me to come there so we can all talk without any distractions or outside pressure. The fact that they wanted me to come to them instead of meeting somewhere neutral was the first red flag. The second red flag was Dad mentioning that Charlotte really wants to apologize to me personally and explain how she never meant for any of this to happen. Suddenly, Charlotte cares about my feelings, after 2 years of treating me like I don't exist. But here's the thing. I've been waiting for exactly this moment. The moment when they'd finally be desperate enough to drop all their pride and actually try to manipulate me face to face. Because I had some things I needed to say to them, and I wanted to see their faces when I said it. I drove to the motel, which was exactly as depressing as you'd expect. It's one of those places that rents rooms by the week to people who have nowhere else to go. Dad meets me in the parking lot and immediately starts with this whole speech about how much he's learned from this experience and how he wants to be a better father. He tells me that losing the house has made him realize what's really important in life, and that's family relationships. He says he's been selfish and hasn't appreciated what a good son I've been, working hard in school and never getting into trouble like so many kids my age. The performance was actually pretty impressive. If I didn't know better, I might have believed he was genuinely having some kind of breakthrough about his behavior. But I've lived with these people for 18 years, and I know exactly what this was. We go into their motel room, and it's even more pathetic than I expected. Charlotte is sitting on one of the beds holding baby Connor, and Mom is hovering around looking nervous. Charlotte immediately launches into this apology about how she never realized how her moving into my room would affect me, and she's sorry for not considering my feelings. She says she was just scared about being a single mom and wasn't thinking clearly about the impact on our family relationships. She tells me she's always looked up to me and admired how responsible and mature I am, and she hopes we can start over and build a real relationship. Mom jumps in with her own apology, saying she's been struggling with some personal issues and took them out on me unfairly. She admits that threatening to lie about me hitting her was completely wrong, and she's ashamed of herself for even thinking about it. The whole thing was so perfectly choreographed that I almost wanted to applaud. They'd clearly planned out exactly what each person would say to push my emotional buttons and make me feel guilty for maintaining my boundaries. But then Dad gets to the real point of this whole performance. He tells me that they've learned their lesson and they're ready to rebuild our relationship on honest terms. However, they need a place to stay while they get back on their feet, and they're hoping I might be willing to talk to Grandpa Connor about giving them another chance. He says they're not asking me to support them financially or take responsibility for their mistakes. They just want me to use my relationship with Grandpa to help them find a temporary solution until they can figure out their housing situation. That's when I realized they still didn't get it. After everything that had happened, after the threatening messages and the blackmail attempts and the lies to the extended family, they still thought they could manipulate me into fixing their problems for them. So I looked at all three of them and told them exactly what I thought about this whole situation. I started with Charlotte. I told her that her apology was meaningless because she wasn't sorry for taking my room. She was sorry that it led to consequences that affected her. I reminded her that she knew my parents sold my stuff without permission, and she moved in anyway because it benefited her. I said that looking up to me apparently doesn't include respecting me enough to ask if I was okay with her taking over my life. Then I turned to Mom. I told her that her personal issues don't excuse 20 years of treating me like a second-class family member while worshiping Charlotte. I said that threatening to lie about me hitting her wasn't a momentary mistake. It was her showing me exactly who she really is when she doesn't get what she wants. Finally, I looked at Dad. I told him that this whole performance proved he learned absolutely nothing from this experience. He wasn't sorry for threatening me and trying to extort money from me. He was sorry that it didn't work, and now he wanted me to bail them out of the consequences of their own choices. I told all of them that they spent 2 decades showing me that I don't matter to this family unless I'm useful to Charlotte. They made it clear that my feelings, my belongings, my relationships, and my future are all secondary to whatever Charlotte needs at any given moment. Dad tried to interrupt and say that's not true. They love me just as much as Charlotte. They just have different ways of showing it. I told him to save it because I had screenshots of every message they sent me, and their own words proved exactly how much they value me as their son. I told them that their real mistake wasn't threatening me or trying to steal money from me. Their real mistake was assuming I was the same powerless kid they'd been pushing around for years. They thought I'd either pay up quietly or disappear from their lives without causing problems. But I'm not that kid anymore. I'm an adult with my own relationships and resources, and I don't need their approval or acceptance to have a good life. I've been preparing for this moment for years because I knew eventually they'd push things too far. Mom started crying and asking what they're supposed to do now, where they're supposed to live, how they're going to take care of Charlotte and the baby. I told her that's exactly the kind of problem they should have thought about before they decided to threaten their son with false accusations to steal money from him. I said they made their choice when they picked Charlotte over me for the 1,000th time. Now they get to live with the consequences of that choice without my help. Charlotte asked if I really want my nephew to grow up homeless because of a family fight that has nothing to do with him. I told her that Connor isn't growing up homeless because of me. He's in this situation because his mother and grandparents chose manipulation and threats over honest communication and family respect. Dad tried one last time to convince me to help them, saying that we're still family no matter what happened, and family doesn't abandon each other during hard times. I told him he was absolutely right. Family doesn't abandon each other during hard times. That's exactly why what they did to me was so unforgivable. I told them I hope they figure out their housing situation and that Charlotte and the baby stay healthy and safe. But I also told them that I'm done being their backup plan when their manipulation doesn't work on other people. As I was leaving, Mom called after me asking if I really want this to be how our relationship ends. I turned around and told her that this isn't how our relationship ends. This is how our relationship has always been. The only difference is that now I'm not pretending otherwise. I drove back to campus and immediately blocked all their numbers. I also left the family group chat because I don't need updates about their situation or people trying to pressure me into helping them. It's been less than 24 hours since that conversation, and I already feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I don't have to worry about when my parents are going to disappoint me or choose Charlotte over me, because I'm not waiting for their approval anymore. I've got 2 more years of college left, a solid GPA, good relationships with professors who are helping me line up internships, and extended family members who actually support me. I'm building the life I want without having to navigate around people who see me as less important than my cousin. I know some people think I should have helped them despite everything they did, because family is family, and Connor is innocent in all this. But I learned something important from my grandfather Connor before he died. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that other people's poor choices aren't your responsibility to fix. My parents had 20 years to build a relationship with me based on respect and love. Instead, they chose to treat me like I was less valuable than Charlotte and expected me to be grateful for whatever attention they gave me. They made that choice over and over again, right up until the moment they tried to blackmail me for furniture money. Now they get to live with the consequences of those choices. And I get to live my life without wondering when the people who are supposed to love me unconditionally are going to hurt me next. Thanks again to everyone who supported me through this whole mess. Your comments helped me stay strong when they were trying to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. Sometimes the best revenge really is just refusing to let people treat you badly anymore.